welcome to Past, Present, and Future, or Three Questions, the podcast where we learn about people's career journeys, how they got to where they are today, and where they'd like to go to next. I'm Parrots Cohen, a technologist and a wordsmith, and in my time in industry, I've been fortunate to work with both large companies and small startups alongside a number of very talented and hardworking individuals. This podcast is some of my conversations with them, where we learn about their journeys and what motivates them. If you'd like to be in the podcast, please feel free to reach out. You don't have to have a certain level of seniority or a number of years of experience. We all have something to share and learn from each other. If you'd like to sponsor the podcast or get involved in the collaboration, we'd also like to hear from you. All right, looking forward to our journey together as we learn more about each other and enrich ourselves in the process.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the show. Today we have with us a great guest, Dontae. Dontae, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, let's kick things off. Let's talk about the beginning. What were the roots of your career journey?
So I started in tech kind of incidentally. I was working in sales. I was terrible at it, and I was at a company called Zones, it's a hardware software company. So I kind of stumbled into contracts at Microsoft as a project manager, and kind of just stayed in project management, moved from program management over the years in a variety of different disciplines. So I was there about 7 years. And then I also kind of stumbled into product management, helping people in the Windows and devices group at Microsoft. And that kind of led to my main, a career path as a product manager where I'm at. I'm still in those type of positions now. And I've worked on a variety of things. I started in cybersecurity, kind of emerging tech. And so that's kind of how I got my start is what's the newest technology? What's the fastest technology? What's the most popular thing going? And I want to work on building products in that space.
Let's pivot over to the current movement. What are you working on currently? What's your main area of focus these days?
Yeah. So I'm a staff product manager at a company called Service Titan. And so it works in the trades. So we're talking about HVAC, plumbing, electrical, all of the things that make our households run, as well as like outdoor things like the greens. So pest control, anything from garage door to roofing, and recently moved into the commercial space. I specifically work on products kind of in the core parts of the platform. So things like search and navigation, AI tools, things of that nature. So yeah, that's the current professional venture. Outside of that, I started last year a career pivot program where I coach people to kind of pivot in their careers, doing a little revamp and relaunch of that in the next coming weeks as well, with a little bit of a different focus based on how the market and how things are going in tech industry today.
We'd love to hear a little bit more about Pivot and your offerings there, and kind of especially with kind of the new shift to AI. But I guess to
Yeah.
tie things back for a moment, I'm sure what you're kind of sharing within Pivot is something you learned previously. You mentioned kind of you started off more like on the project management side. What was that journey like, kind of moving from project into product? And while they may be adjacent fields, they are
Yeah.
kind of very unique swim lanes.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny. When I first was, so the last 2.5 years to 3 years of Microsoft, I was working for the security operations team at the time, which focused on helping security operations or running security operations for different programs on the hardware side of Microsoft. So think of Surface, Xbox, some of these groups. And on my journey there, I kind of started later in my tenure during those 2.5 to 3 years. I started working on just providing solutions for problems. So I would sit with them. I would essentially collect requirements, which I didn't know requirements at the time, kind of hearing the issues they were running into, and then coming back, translating those and working on solutions within our group to help them. And so when I transitioned from Microsoft, I started working. I wanted to go work in the startup space, and in Seattle at the time, where I'm based, there was a ton of startups popping up, and I landed with a company called Contact context relevant at the time, later on Versive. Now it's been bought by a company called Easton Tire. And when I did that, I had a manager who they were looking to grow product managers. And she was like, "Are you interested?" And I was like, "Sure." And she told me a little bit about it. I didn't know what a product manager was really, but that kind of was my first foray into product management, learning some of the gaps between where I'm at right now around our customers and customer problems.
And that's amazing. I have a similar experience when kind of had a conversation with someone and steps into a technical
Yeah,
program management function. So it's really the importance of our careers, like as much as it is kind of our willingness to take risks and make pivots, it's really also having good mentors and sponsors along the way, and kind of trying, kind of as we advance in our own careers, like keeping that in mind to try to do that ourselves as
yeah,
best we can. Um,
absolutely.
we'd love to, let's talk about kind of pivot itself and kind of look a little
Yeah,
bit into the future and kind of in the kind of current state of things. What have you love to like hear about the core offering itself, and definitely kind of want to
yeah,
talk about kind of the layer and kind of the pivot of pivot, if you will, kind of within kind
yeah,
of the
yeah.
current landscape.
So Pivot has started from the genesis from it was so with the University of Washington, there was a program I was a part of, and that program helped those from underdeveloped or just kind of marginalized communities, help them transition and move into product management. You know, product management sometimes can be a black box. It's not like a certain degree. We all come from different backgrounds, so having someone guide you through to have those opportunities and those open doors was something that was a program I was a part of for some years, and as a part of the steering committee, kind of help trying to shape these type of opportunities for people. But the mentoring and the helping of people was really like something that stuck with me. So when the program kind of, based on this economic climate, that program shut down in November of 2024. And when that started happening, and I was kind of moving, wanting to leave Amazon, um, the it still sat with me to say, like, what can I do to help people, and how can I help? What opportunities can I provide? Because product management is one discipline within tech, but there's many opportunities, and many people want to go in different directions. And so January 2025 is when I started Pivoted, which is a program that was at the time built around really any transition in or out of tech, and that includes promotions, that includes moving different roles, but also includes moving out into like things like entrepreneurship, which is something that's also been a part of my life for a long time. And so the program was a 2 month to 3 month to 6 month program, kind of coach you through providing those opportunities until you make that shift. The reason why I said kind of in a refresh mode right now is because, we've had more continual layoffs within tech. It's very disruptive. There's a lot of fear and anxiety around AI. Everyone's rushed to either use the tool or to take advantage of using that tool. But we know it's going to shape our future. We don't really know how. And I've talked to and interviewed quite a few PMs, designers, researchers, people in different roles in tech that are still kind of facing this uncertainty. And so I'm now kind of refreshing the program to something a little bit more succinct, that'll be launched in the next couple of weeks, and that's focused on really what's the pathway forward. What's the pathway forward if you want to stay in your regular role, but that's what's also the pathway forward for launching something that will kind of give you a little bit more security when it comes to being in the tech space, and you have more control over both your ideas as well as your career path, and you're not kind of just putting all your eggs in one basket, which we can see based on the climate we're in isn't necessarily the greatest thing in some instances.
That's very powerful. I think like when it comes to being able to make career pivots or kind of even to promote yourself or to start something new, really having frameworks and pathways from people who have been there before, really that's, I think a large part of the struggle for people is I don't even know how to go about doing this. Like
Hmm.
sure, conceptual, I'd love to like launch a new concept and iterate on it and kind of see kind of what the market or kind of internal stakeholders have to say when I'm presenting. But if I don't know how to do this, if I don't have a rubric, if I don't have the skills to do this, I can spend 3, 6, 9 months just figuring that out alone.
Yeah,
Um, and having something useful kind of from your years of experience, I think is definitely a very, very value offering. Um, so definitely we'll include links for ways to folks to reach out to you if they want to learn more about Pivot. Switching gears a little bit,
yeah,
um, I think in a similar area, and I think definitely there's a lot of, in an era of anxiety around AI, there's definitely a lot of focus on kind of small businesses and kind of utility services. What are you seeing kind of from your vantage point and kind of being in a company that sits at the center of a lot of this? Where do you
Mhm.
see the future of kind of the trades and kind of how technology helps small trade business owners kind of run their own businesses and optimize them and kind of shifts that are coming?
Yeah. The fascinating thing about the trades was one, I truly had no idea, as a homeowner, you kind of, it's in the back of your mind when something goes wrong or you have maintenance in your home. It's just part of what you do, or even just renting in a place, right? It's just a part of what we do. We don't think too much about it unless we have family members or have been in the trades ourselves. But it is a booming industry. It's a very large industry, and the space that Service Titan is within that industry kind of gives you a little bit of I would say two pathways to your point of your question. One is you're actually seeing more and more people move into the trades themselves. It's lucrative both for as a small business as well as, like, I would say younger adults that are looking for a skill set that will always be able to produce income for yourself. So it's an amazing place to grow in. When you're looking at small businesses that are growing and utilizing technology to do so, and I see this like with my wife, for example. She's a small business owner in the salon and beauty industry. What you see is that they're effective as possible with what they can do, but to be able to manage all the aspects that are not the defined skills of the business, right? As a person who owns maybe an HVAC company, you want to focus on helping your customers in that space, right? Maintenance, growth, education of maintenance of HVAC systems. You don't want to spend your time on marketing. You don't want to spend your time on operations as much as possible, right? These are necessities, but they aren't necessarily why someone gets into that business. Any small business, you want to be an operator more than you want to be someone who's just, running the administrative part. So I think the advantage in technology, especially in AI now, is to really bring efficiencies and automation to areas that you don't have to be an expert in, but can allow you to focus on the key parts of your business that's going to help it grow. So that's everything from marketing, from advertising, from even operation sides of automating different aspects of your business when it comes to financial reporting, things of this nature. Now, Service Titan itself has a lot of this automation and things that are it's building in the platform, but just generally, when you're looking at technology and AI tooling specifically, there's a lot of efficiencies and automations that can really help a person scale a small business into something more lucrative. And that's where I think it's going more and more.
I think it's, again, to that theme of like tooling and support and kind of the more you can do, the more you're empowered to do, and kind of seeing it within that picture, within that framework. Um, I guess my last question is a bit of I think an overall one. I think
Yeah.
we've mentioned it kind of multiple times. When it comes to, oh, I'm sure there's a term around it. When it comes to AI anxiety or AI hope, what have you seen, or what do you kind of think kind of as it comes to, I mean, we don't know beyond the next couple of
Right.
years in terms of a horizon, but what
Yeah.
have you seen? What have you kind of seen as a potential path forward through this kind of valley of uncertainty, as it were?
Yeah. I think if you've been in tech for any amount of years, you know that there are cycles and patterns, right? There's almost nothing new under the sun, meaning that even though the technologies may change, the way our industry moves and ebbs and flows, it does seem cyclical. So we've seen it with the dot-com era. If you're around at that time, you've seen it in different aspects with things like cloud and with the advancement of social media. Um, a good example of this is social media is a good example of this when it comes to advertising, right? Before, getting a 60-second spot on the Super Bowl was like the apex of being able to advertise your business. But now you see content creation as a brand new industry over the last years of social media growth. You could think of AI in that same aspect, right? Just like on the advertising, you have content creators, but you still have big box advertising companies. The new normal has shifted, but things have not been completely either destroyed and or irreparably changed. Where things have gone away and you won't have them back. And I think the biggest fear with AI is kind of the Terminator almost fallacy, right? Where it's like, oh my gosh, the machines are going to take over and we won't have any ways to do things. I've always been a proponent of, I don't think it's those who build it that will be the most successful, it will be those who know how to utilize it the best. And so knowing how to utilize the tools that we are given, because AI is a tool like anything else, and how we adopt to it and how we adapt to it is going to be of the utmost importance. I do think there's some bit of a correction when it comes to both the market in the tech industry, just again, based off of the cycles that we've seen and the ebbs and flows of how our industry has gone. So that means that will companies come back to still have jobs in certain spaces where they've done mass layoffs? I think so. Will it be to what it was before? No, I think it's going to be completely changed. How PM product managers do product management is going to change. Same with designers and engineers, especially those that are on the very strict technical side of the business. It's going to change forever. But it doesn't mean that the fear should not necessarily be in will it change and I can't control it. Because I think that's where a lot of the anxiety comes from, is the uncertainty. I think it's more of we are in we're in a flux period right now where we're trying to figure out, the industry's trying to figure out exactly what the present normal looks like. But that will come and it will plateau out a bit before the next disruption comes within the tech industry, because that's how technology goes. So my viewpoint is that we should look to adopt the tools in ways that are going to make sense for the role that we are in. And we should also be open to new opportunities so that we don't put our eggs all in one basket, so that we are setting ourselves up. And what I find is that a lot of people, it's not necessarily the fear, the anxiety that gets us. It is it's almost I don't know what I don't know. So I don't have a strategy. I don't have a plan. I can't really see out of the fog to be able to understand which direction and what I should try to do and what I should not try to do. Right. There's at least 7 main tools when you just talk about AI in general. Right? You have Gemini, you have ChatGPT, you have Perplexity, you have Claude. And there's new tools almost seemingly every day. What do I actually try? What do I actually work through? And I think one of the things that I've seen just talking to people as well is that there's space there's a mental model that can be developed for you to navigate these spaces, both for yourself personally as well as for yourself professionally, depending on the role that you have. And the ability to do that is going to help you identify what tools you should tackle. What are the things that you should try? What are the areas that you should ignore? And because that's just as important as the things that you should take in. And the last thing I'll land with is, because of the cycle that I believe we're in and that the tech industry has taken, it's more important than ever for people to have the ability to exercise what gives them peace, right? We all take on these jobs and we come into these companies and we put our trust in that, hey, they're going to do their part. I'm going to do my part. I'm going to be a hard worker and they're going to provide, income and stability for what I'm doing. And I think we've seen that that's not necessarily the type of industry that we're in at this point in time. But I also think companies are figuring things out just like we are. So it's good for us to be able to explore what avenues we have, not just from creating income, but also to provide a sense of stability, a sense of control and peace for the things that we can control, so that we're still making an impact with the skills that we have and with the gifts that we have in the spaces that we're in. So that would be my last point for people to take.
No, it's extremely helpful. I think it's like on that last point, it's especially to figure out mindsets and approach to deal with change effectively, and to think about, as structure shifts, where are we finding meaning? How are we defining identity? And in terms of learning different tools, as you were talking, it brought up memories for me when I first started learning how to code, and everyone's like,
Yeah.
you should start, and then you should start with this language or this
Yeah,
language.
yeah.
And then the worst was with JavaScript. It's like, you should learn
Yep.
no, it's Bootstrap. No, it's this.
Yep.
And I think a similar, developing a mental model, how to prompt well, these are certain kind of transferable skills. And there's no way to, short of having a crystal ball, to know what will be kind of the remaining framework. But just like you can learn overall kind of different programming paradigms, and then kind of you learn the
Yeah.
syntax for kind of the area that you're brought in. That's like I've
Yep.
seen like an effective tool in engineering. I think it's something similar you can do here as well. And I like your idea of just kind of thinking about the history, thinking about the cycles. And in my own kind of novice armchair, I'll say is like it's not just technological cycles, it's financial cycles. So like
Yeah.
understanding market cycles and understanding that some of the ideas of economics can also be some level of expected potential, kind of like how that will kind of play out in the future.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely right. And I mean, it's the same like when I, going just to add in, is just the program we were running at the UW of helping people, you know, how do you take something ambiguous and make it digestible by a majority, right? You have to have a succinct system or pattern that people can gravitate towards, that they don't have to go back and refer to, right? With product management, it has been a lot of frameworks. So what I found is that people would come in and they would start interviewing and they would try to memorize all of the frameworks, and they would try to memorize how to navigate the frameworks. Well, if you take every framework that's possibly you can imagine and try to navigate and try to memorize and map out every potential workflow for that specific framework, and then depending on the amount of interviews that you can take, there's so many scenarios that you can account for. And that's not easy for someone to have the confidence to prepare to be a product manager. So how do you do that? Well, you have to create a system. And in this case, what I created is mental models. What are the anchors and the beats that don't change no matter what? And because they don't change, that means that you can reliably understand and practice on those aspects of different mental models, right? For product management, you have a customer aspect, you have a problem aspect, you have a solution aspect, and you have different permutations of these. But if you spend time deeply understanding them, not only will you interview well, but you'll also be able to do the job well, utilizing the skills that you have. And so it's the same way when we're talking about AI, when we're talking about things that we should be doing going forward, right? And so part of the reason why I felt Pivoted was a legitimate problem solver for people is it's something that I have done well for myself, but it's also something that I've seen work well in different avenues like the UW program. And so taking that and making it available for people to create on their own is something that I'm just continuously trying to work through, because again, that like you just mentioned, right? That's transferable. Your skills and your unique views and your experience will be transferable if you have the proper systems and mental models to transfer them from place to place, depending on what you want to get into and how the market is going for our industry.
It sounds overall like a really necessary framework and tool for these times. So definitely, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing
Yeah,
about Pivot. Thank you for sharing your experience. It was a pleasure to have you on. Thank you, Dontae.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Parrots.